Hello, Internet. So, this episode is going to be a little controversial, especially due to certain recent events in the news. I just want to start out with, I'm not trying to cash in on other people's suffering just to get views. I just think this message needs to get out into the world to the 10 people who will watch this. Who actually probably only 5 people will watch this. But it's I think that, oh, by the way, welcome to the Empirical Sword. I'm Lord Master DLC79. I happen to believe the school doesn't teach. We have to be the masters of our education. Even though the topic of this video isn't necessarily something the school should be teaching, it does relate to things the school should be teaching. So I think it's fairly appropriate for this series. And one of the things that, whenever something like this happens, and I'm going to try to avoid mentioning any specific incidents, because I don't think it's actually necessary to do so, because these things just keep happening, and that should be telling us something, really, right there. But whenever something like this happens, we always have people who are like, okay, we need to ban guns entirely. Or, no, we need to have everybody needs to have a gun because then this won't happen. And, well, for one, it's a very vocal minority who's on this side and on that side. Most people are kind of in the middle. For example, a lot of people accuse the NRA of being that everybody should have a gun. That people associated with the NRA have made that claim, but the NRA itself officially supports certain gun regulations. But the big controversial thing that I'm going to say is that gun violence isn't about guns. And I know that it's like, how does that make any sense? Well, pay attention. Keep watching. The thing is, everybody gets caught up in the guns. They forget the violence part. Look at how violent human history has been without guns. We were killing each other with rocks and sticks for a time. Then we figured out how to attach rocks to sticks. Then we figured out how to sharpen those rocks. Then we figured out how to smelt metal and sharpen that metal. We're a violent species. And I'm kind of jumping ahead in my thought process here. I am in favor of restricting access to guns and ensuring that certain people just can't access guns, period. And my major defense for that is, look at the Constitution. Not the Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself. We are all created equal. We all have the inalienable rights to life, liberty, and happiness. It used to be property, but then they changed that. Life. Inalienable right to life. Yet, if a crime is severe enough, some people don't have a problem removing a person's right to life. Something guaranteed by the Constitution as inalienable, something we should not be able to remove. Liberty, that's the ability to go out and do whatever you want. Which is the exact opposite of putting people in prison. When people commit crimes that are severe enough, they get put in prison. Their liberty is removed, even though the Constitution says it's inalienable. Now we get to the Bill of Rights, and we get to the right to bear arms. And all of a sudden we have a problem removing access to this right. I consider this to be a logical incongruency here. And really, it comes down to marketing, because that's what politics is. The vast majority of politicians, I don't want to say every politician, because there are some politicians out there who do want to reasonably discuss the issues and come to solutions, but the vast majority of politicians, they want attention, because if they don't have your attention, they're not gonna get votes, and they're not gonna get money, and whatever it is they want done isn't going to get done, because they won't have attention and they won't have money. So it's about marketing, and part of marketing is being polarizing, being extremely for something or extremely against something. Sound familiar? In fact, I can have this rule that if somebody's extremely for something and they don't talk about the other side, or if they're extremely against something and they don't talk about the other side, I don't listen. Because that person right there, the person who's just focusing, like laser focused on one side of the issue, they want attention. They don't want to present information. They want attention. And I think that's what dominates a lot of these discussions right here, and in other areas as well. I mean, pretty much anything in politics is going to be, but let's steer clear of that. This is about as political as I want to get. But, I mean, bottom line is I am in favor of gun control. I do believe that there should be certain restrictions, and some restrictions that do exist aren't strict enough. Some people just shouldn't have access to guns, period. But the problem I see here is it's treating the symptoms and not the actual cause. I'm pausing to kind of let that sink in. It comes down to again, the title. Gun violence isn't about guns. It's about violence. What causes a person to want to pick up a weapon and do harm to another person? What up here leads to the desire to do this, and then the ambition to carry it out? What is the psychology of violence? What is the psychology of violent crime? I mean, one of the arguments against gun control is that a lot of criminals will just get access to guns via illegal means, and one of the truths is that a lot of the guns involved in violent crime, at least gang violence, they're stolen from people who obtained the guns illegally. See, to a career criminal, breaking into someone's house and stealing their property, or going to the black market, to a career criminal, that's another day at the office. So, if putting more constraints on the legal channels is the solution, how's that going to affect the career criminals, like gang members? How's that going to affect gang violence? And I realize that the latest incident isn't actually gang related, but gang violence still happens, and it uses guns for the most part. I mean, what we need to get to is I mean, treating the symptoms. That's a treatment. We need treatment right now, but long term, the treatment isn't going to be enough. We need a vaccine that will take care of the cause. What is the cause? What is the psychological stuff going on in people's heads that make them want to do this sort of thing? Just restricting their access to weapons, they'll just choose another weapon. How do we kill violence? Is essentially the question here. Not how do we stop gun violence? How do we stop all violence? I mean, yes, there are some cases of actual mental illness causing this? How do we identify this early? And I mean in childhood, because, I mean, the news. If you've been paying attention to the news recently, at least recently as of when this video was recorded / uploaded, then we need to identify these disorders early, in childhood. How do we do that? I don't have the answer to that. I mean, somebody else would have the answer to that. I mean, gang violence, it's like, I mean, at my new job, I've been hearing people talking, and a lot of them, that they grew up and still live in neighborhoods infested with gangs. So they grow up in this environment of, you know, people just resort to violence to solve any problem. There's always a display of violence or a threat of violence to demonstrate strength, to keep people from messing with you. I mean, and, you know, there's a saying, people behave at the level that they're taught. A child that's raised in this sort of environment, seeing all the adults going around, you know, puffing out their chests, brandishing their guns, and, you know, having displays of strength and displays of violence just to, you know, have any sort of street cred, that's how they're taught. And they behave at the level they're taught. So how do we change this? This is I mean, I can't even put it into words. It's so big. I mean, we're talking about reshaping society itself and how people think of strength, how people confront problems, social conflict. I mean, how do we change how people think of these things and how they interact with these issues? Again, this is one of those things that's so big that I don't have the answers to it. All I can do is identify that there's a problem, that how we're training people to interact with the world isn't working right now, and we're suffering the consequences. Again, there's a cause and effect. You know, gang violence, gun violence. I mean, violence in general. This is the effect. We need to start focusing in on the cause. And I mean, like I said in a previous video, every single problem in the real world is multivariate. It has multiple causes. So, I mean, we essentially need a vaccine for every single cause. I mean, the mental illness, the social education that we get from our own personal environment. And every neighborhood has a different social environment. So every vaccine would have to be different for each and every neighborhood. And then there's the influence of media. I mean, in my opinion, glamorizes violence, among other things. I mean, this is a hugely complicated problem, and one video isn't going to solve it. But hopefully it can inspire people who actually have the knowledge and resources to start implementing solutions. And admittedly, these solutions would take possibly decades to start being implemented, depending on the political environment. Politics is slow. It's another form of bureaucracy, and bureaucracy was invented to halt or hinder progress. And if you know anything about my personality type, we want progress now. So, yes, I'm a little impatient. Sorry. But hopefully this video is not so controversial that it starts throwing red flags in YouTube's community guidelines. I mean, it's just me talking about stuff, so hopefully. I mean, right now I'm thinking about the thumbnails just being like a black square with my logo up in the corner, so as to avoid any sort of controversy on that. You know, this is kind of the YouTube environment right now. Beware of controversy. Beware of being controversial. But on the marketing side, you need to be controversial. And personally, I do believe this message needs to get out, because not enough people are playing both sides, because both sides do have valid arguments. You know, we need gun control, we need more restrictions, but that's not actually addressing the cause. We need to address the cause eventually. And by eventually, I mean as soon as possible. And by as soon as possible, I mean now. Again, there's that impatience. But admittedly, addressing the cause is a lot more complicated than just laying down new rules and regulations. But I mean, the problem with laying down new rules and regulations is you're essentially patching a system that has a hole in it. It's like you have a bucket. It springs a leak. Okay, so let's put a patch here. It springs another leak. Let's put another patch here. It springs another leak. Another patch. Another leak. Another patch. Another leak. Patch. Leak. Patch. Leak. Patch. Leak. Patch. Eventually, you have a million holes and a million patches, and there's no bucket left. It's like, what's causing the holes? And obviously this is a very flawed analogy, because I just thought of it right here on the spot. But I mean, I think what's causing the holes in you know, the regulations and you know, the system as it is. I don't know why I'm using air quotes. I think the cause of the holes is that a lot of the rules and regulations, at least the fundamentals, were invented about 400 years ago. And American society has just evolved and changed so much since then that a lot of them don't work anymore. And government has been trying to kind of, rather than rewriting the regulations to keep up with the change, they've just been bolting on new patches here and there, trying to keep up with change. And it's progress versus bureaucracy. And I think really this is kind of a symptom of progress moving faster than bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy that's laying down the rules and regulations is trying to catch up, but it's being outpaced by progress. Now, what exactly is progressing faster than bureaucracy? I don't know. Maybe it's the technology. Maybe it's society itself. I mean, in a way, we could blame the internet, because the internet connects everybody, and we can send messages back and forth at the speed of light, give or take. And maybe bureaucracy is having trouble keeping up with just the sheer volume of communication that we can achieve. And admittedly, on the surface, it's hard to see how that relates to violence in general. But I mean, considering that, I mean, communication over the internet is about human interaction, and violence is a form of human interaction. And violence is usually spurred on by certain results of certain interactions, usually negative emotion. So if we're interacting with each other at a higher frequency over the internet, the incidence of negative emotion is probably going to be higher, right? This is just me kind of thinking out loud, and we're kind of in speculation land right now. I'm kind of brainstorming ideas, and technically I shouldn't even be doing that on camera, because then I look like an idiot. Because I start talking about these things that I have half thought out. And, but yeah, I mean, this is my thought process right here. Usually I don't do it out loud, but the camera's rolling, so I feel compelled to do it out loud. But, I mean, maybe it is faster communication and larger volumes of communication. I mean, I hesitate to talk about these people that I work with, because I work with them, but there are certain things going on there that aren't quite legal, and yeah, technology, it speeds it up, and I'm not entirely sure a bureaucracy can keep up with that speed, because bureaucracy is about slowing things down, not speeding things up. So, I mean, and really at this point, I'm just kind of babbling and doing the whole info dump, because, again, that's my thought process. This is how my brain tries to work through these conundrums. But I will continue doing that off camera. Because, I mean, I'm seeing the timer right now. I've been rambling on for about 20 minutes now. And I think that's quite long enough. So, and hopefully this video does not result in any negative consequences for my channel. If it does, it does. I still think that the message needs to get out, and that we need to be thinking in a less polarized manner about these things, trying to see the big picture. And hopefully I've painted a reasonably not so vague image of the big picture as I see it. And yeah, if you got something out of this video, think about subscribing. And if you do subscribe, hit that bell icon, because the bell icon turns on notifications, and that's how you get notified when I drop videos like this. And whatever you're watching next, I will see you then.